a major newsworthy night at Impact Wrestling Sacrifice event featuring a return of a world champion signing a new contract, but also the departure of an up-and-coming talent, plus multiple title changes and the odd, interesting cameo. All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling News. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very, very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of Impact Wrestling, and my, oh my, if you missed it last night, you're going to be kicking yourself because Impact Wrestling Sacrifice event from Louisville, Kentucky featured several major newsworthy stories. We saw title changes, we saw returns, we saw departures, we saw cameos, we saw so much, and we're going to get into it. First of all, we're going to talk about the return of former Impact World Champion Josh Alexander. He is back, and he has signed a new contract with the company. Now, Josh Alexander has returned and he has signed a multi-year agreement with Impact Wrestling. The last time Josh Alexander, of course, was on Impact Wrestling television, he was sent home by Impact Wrestling's Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore, who told him he needed to get his head clear and he was too focused on gaining revenge on Moose, who captured the World Championship from Josh Alexander, of course, by cashing in his Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy at Bound for Glory last October. Now, last night in the main event of Sacrifice, Moose successfully defended his World Championship against Heath, but immediately following the match, he was laid out by a returning Josh Alexander, who revealed that while he was at home in Canada, he went to the corporate offices of Anthem Sports and officially signed a multi-year agreement with Impact, and also made it clear that he will be in the main event of the next upcoming pay-per-view, that being Rebellion against Moose for the Impact World Championship. Now, of course, previously, Josh Alexander had to pull out of several independent wrestling dates over the course of the early March, end of February, and possibly, they thought, even further going into April because his work visa expired along with his Impact Wrestling contract. Now that Josh has signed his Impact Wrestling contract for the next several years, of course, he's got his work visa back because that's why he was able to be in Louisville, Kentucky last night. So I was surprised. I think like everyone else, I was surprised. We hadn't heard much about Josh Alexander, and I would never say this. I never felt that it was a foregone conclusion. Oh, he's definitely going to AEW, or he's definitely, never coming back. I don't think that was the case. I was leaning more towards he might end up in AEW. The reason I thought he might end up in AEW, not because of the singles aspect, is because we know how deep the tag team scene is there. We know the tag team he has with Ethan Page and North, arguably one of, if not the greatest tag team in Impact Wrestling history, certainly modern Impact Wrestling history, longest reigning Impact World Tag Team Champions in company history. And even when Ethan Page's contract expired with the company in December of 2020, there was this feeling of, at the end of Casablanca, we'll meet again kind of situation. But during that period of time, Josh Alexander was wrestled as a singles in Impact, and he got super over, and he's really, really good. And he was having great matches, became the X Division champion, had just one of the best, again, modern X Division championship reigns in terms of the matches he was having, the quality of matches he was having against some unbelievable opponents, whether they were Ultimate X matches, whether they were matches against people from New Japan Pro Wrestling, whether they were against whoever, he was having great matches. Cashes in his X Division Championship, option C, to challenge for the Impact World Championship against Christian Cage in the main event of Bound for Glory. Again, has an amazing match, and then they did the storyline with Moose coming out, cashing in the Call Your Shot Gauntlet trophy, and becoming the Impact World Champion. Now, I speculated before at the time that I felt that was Impact Wrestling protecting themselves, even though the story for the longest time was very obvious that Josh Alexander was going to be the guy to bring the championship back to Impact Wrestling, defeat the AEW guy. I think they hoped that would be Kenny Omega, but it turned out to be Christian Cage. For the longest time, they hoped that Josh Alexander would be that guy. His contract was expiring. They knew his contract was expiring in February 2022, and he hadn't signed a new deal. And I felt that if Josh Alexander had signed his contract late last year, prior to Bound for Glory, he would be the Impact World Champion today. I always felt that that was the plan, and I felt that Impact just got somewhat cold feet and thought, does it make a lot of sense to be investing all this TV time and energy and put the belt on a guy that might be leaving? And it was kind of, I feel like a situation of, well, if you sign a new contract and you stay, you're going to be the Impact World Champion and we're going to build the company around you. I thought it was a 50-50 call, but I think Josh Alexander's looked at it and said, you know what? I could go to AEW. I could be back in the tag team of the North. I could face some of these great tag teams that they've got there, whether it's the Young Bucks, whether it's the Lucha Brothers, whether it's Jurassic Express, whether it's FTR, whether it's Red Dragon, whether it's the Hardy Boys when they're going to be in there. But that roster is so big and that tag team division is so big. Where am I better off right now? Would I rather be in the main event every single week for Impact Wrestling as the world champion in a company that is touring more often? I can get more money than I was on before, all that kind of stuff. What's better to me right now? And the answer is Impact Wrestling. It's easily the better place for him to be right now. He could be on a bigger stage in AEW, but he would be in a tag team in a division that's very crowded. He is the centerpiece of the promotion right now. And he's going to be facing Moose at Rebellion. He's going to be winning, I think. We know that Moose is also dealing with a shoulder injury at the moment. He's dealing with a torn labrum, and I suspected before that once he drops the Impact World Championship, he's going to have time off to get that fixed. We don't know how serious the torn labrum is now, but that's a serious injury in general. So I would suspect it's a case of Josh Alexander signed the contract. He's facing Moose at Rebellion, which of course is one of their 4 pay-per-views per year. Josh Alexander will win the Impact World Championship. Moose will go away to get his shoulder fixed, and Josh Alexander will be the champion of the company that they hoped in the first place. So it was a great ending. It's a big win for Impact Wrestling, certainly, because there was a lot of uncertainty. It's great for Josh Alexander to be back, not just on Impact Wrestling television, but also to have his work visa back, so now he can work these indie dates as well. For those that will say, see, it was a work. They worked you. They told you it was work. I doubt it. And the reason I say I doubt it is because he pulled out of those indie dates, and he wouldn't sacrifice that amount of money. If, for instance, he was going to work that Terminus show, and I would be really surprised if he went to Jonathan Gresham and said, look, I'm trying to work everyone, so, go to the trouble of replacing me. You promised your thing to your fans. You're a fledgling company. Yeah, let's just falsely advertise that I'm going to be available. I just don't think he'd do that. I really don't. So I legitimately feel like his contract did expire, and then he had a decision to make, and he made a decision. So it's a big win for Impact Wrestling, and I'm excited to see Josh Alexander back facing off against Moose at Rebellion. And like I said, I think he's going to win the Impact World Championship there. But as one person returns, another leaves, because Jake Something is apparently finished with Impact Wrestling. Jake Something is officially now a free agent. Now, I spoke about this yesterday, actually, in the brief Impact video I did prior to Sacrifice, saying that I felt that if he didn't defeat Trey Miguel for the X Division Championship, he would be gone. Because I knew his contract was up around now, and I thought, well, if he wins the title, he's obviously signed a new deal, he's sticking around. If he loses, he's probably going to be gone. And Fightful Select have confirmed that Jake Something is now a free agent. Now, of course, Fightful did recently report that Jake's deal was up at the end of February, which was true. But there was one outstanding date remaining on the contract. Despite the deal being set to expire, Impact put him in a top spot in a Next Division title match for Sacrifice, which is, at the moment, slated to be his final date with the company as for now. Fightful are reporting that as of the moment, no deal has been agreed between Jake Something and Impact Wrestling. He's not scheduled to be at the Sunday television tapings after wrestling last night. Fightful have also told that things ended between the two sides on good terms, and Jake would, quote, likely be welcome back. It was reiterated to Fightful that this doesn't necessarily spell the end of the two working together if they can reach an agreement in the future. So, look, I mean, if he does go, that's a big loss to Impact, because Jake Something's a guy that's got a ton of potential, and I think he can be a really big star for the company. And talk about a guy that does have potential to be an Impact World Champion. I was watching the opening match of Sacrifice last night between him and Trey Miguel. Just incredible. Just absolutely incredible. I also look at him, and despite WWE being very picky on who they sign nowadays and the age and all that kind of stuff, Jake Something, you look at him and you say, he has got something, right? It's in the name. But Vince McMahon would look at a guy like him and go, phew, now that's a guy we're looking for. He's got the look, he's got the size, he can work. Maybe needs to improve on his promos, but who doesn't nowadays in pro wrestling? So it would be a big loss for Impact. Whilst he's not expected to be at the tapings tonight, again, I wouldn't be shocked if he is, because we know how Impact Wrestling works contracts. And Josh Alexander's a great example. I'm glad we spoke about him first, because he's a great example of someone that their contract can expire, but then they can come back a couple of weeks later because the deal's worked out. He faced Trey Miguel in the opening match of Sacrifice last night. The same thing happened with him. When he returned to Impact Wrestling, right, the entire Rascals, their contracts expired. They were all expected to go to WWE and some of NXT. Only 2 of them did. Trey Miguel came back, and he realized, you know what, I don't want to go to WWE. I don't want to go to AEW. I want to return to Impact. So I wouldn't rule out Jake Something returning, but as of right now, he's a free agent. And He's going to have a lot of options to him. I wouldn't be surprised if WWE made him an offer, even though they're very picky nowadays about who they sign. I think that they would be interested because of his look. I think AEW, again, would be interested because, again, his look, he can work, and he hasn't been touched by WWE television. So I think he'd have a lot of offers available to him. So it's going to be difficult to see if Impact Wrestling can lure him to come back. I think the way they lure him to come back is the same way with Josh Alexander. Hey, you're going to be a big star for us. We want you to be in main events. We want you to compete for world championships by, say, the end of the year. And I really do think Jake Something can do that. I absolutely do. So would be a big loss for Impact Wrestling, but once we have more information about his next steps, we'll talk about it in the coming days. Going back to Sacrifice, I mentioned we saw multiple title changes last night. One being the Knockouts Championship. Tasha Steelz is the new Knockouts Champion, and arguably I think the most shocking title switch of the night. I really did not see this title change happening, like, at all. Tasha Steelz has captured her first ever Knockouts Championship, but of course chicanery and shenanigans definitely played a role in this one. Now, Mickie James had to overcome all of the odds at Sacrifice. The match before her own was the Deonna Purrazzo Champ Open Challenge. Chelsea Green answered that challenge, even though Chelsea and Deonna are best of friends. Competition clouded their friendship, and Deonna once again targeted the once injured wrist of Chelsea Green, and Mickie James came out to save her friend. Now, as she was saving her from Deonna Purrazzo, out came Tasha Steelz, and we had a match straight away. For the first few minutes of the Knockouts Championship match, Mickie James was distracted as Chelsea Green was being tended to by medical staff at ringside. Combine that distraction with Savannah Evans' factor, and Mickie James was wrestling a lot more than Tasha Steelz just inside of the ring. Ultimately, Tasha Steelz would catch Mickie James as she was coming off the top rope after having just fended it off another distraction from Savannah Evans with a cutter to secure the victory and her first ever Knockouts Championship. Like I said, was really surprised by this one. I always felt that Mickie James would be dropping the championship back to Deonna Purrazzo. I thought that would probably happen at Rebellion. I felt that they would build it towards a match where it would be Mickie James versus Deonna Purrazzo with all of the bouts on the line. So the Impact Knockouts Championship, the Ring of Honor Women's Championship, and the AAA Women's Championship as well. They haven't gone in that direction. I'm glad for Tasha Steelz because I do think she's a great talent. I was a fan of her in Fire and Flavor. And I did sort of speak about that maybe in recent weeks. Certainly the Knockouts division had maybe become too Mickie and Deonna centric, and they did need to also focus on other talents, bringing up other talents. So Tasha Steelz was a surprising one, certainly, and I'm interested to see where they go with it. I don't know if it's going to be a short-term reign, because I could see maybe we get a triple threat match, right, at Rebellion, and it's Deonna Purrazzo versus Mickie James versus Tasha Steelz. Maybe that's where Deonna Purrazzo wins it back, and we build towards Mickie versus Deonna once again at Slammiversary with all of the bouts on the line. Maybe that's how they go. I don't know. But for me, if you're going to do a match that's all of the bouts on the line, it makes sense for people to be bringing different stuff to the party. Unless, this is the only other thing I could think of, if they were building towards a triple threat match at Rebellion, we could get maybe Tasha Steelz, who's the Knockouts champion, Deonna Purrazzo, who's, say, the AAA Women's Champion, and Mickie James, who's the Ring of Honor Women's Champion, because maybe she answers Deonna Purrazzo's open challenge and wins the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. And that then leads to Mickie James crossing over into AEW, which I'm sure she wants to do as well, because she would want to be someone that was on, you know, WWE television, Impact Wrestling television, AEW television in the space of a few months. That would be quite noteworthy. So maybe that's what they're going to do. So keep an eye out for that one. But it was certainly really surprising. I did not see that title change happening at all. Another title change was new Impact Tag Team Champions, because Violent by Design are once again the Impact World Tag Team Champions. Now, of course, for several months, Violent by Design have not been happy about not having the Tag Team Championship in their stable, blaming the former member Rhino for eating the pinfall when the group last lost the bouts. But the group rectified that loss at Sacrifice when they defeated the Good Brothers to capture the championships. Specifically, Eric Young and Joe Doring worked that match, and they're the new champions. With the victory, the upcoming match at the Multiverse of Matches between Gallows and Anderson and the Briscoe brothers is no longer champion versus champion. The tag team titles, as I mentioned, were not the only title change that changed hands last night at Sacrifice. We'll talk about the other title change in a second. But again, I was surprised by this one because I felt that we were building towards the Good Brothers and the Briscoes, right? I felt that was the deal. The only thing I can think of, again, with it is that maybe, look, when do the Good Brothers contracts expire? July. They signed in July of 2020. Their contracts were up in July. We don't know if they're going to sign new deals or not. I know July is a bit of a way off. That's 4 months away. But maybe this is Impact Wrestling saying, you know what? Good Brothers with the Bullet Club right now. They're going to be doing a lot of crossover with New Japan, and we just would prefer the bouts to be here, maybe. Unless the plan is to actually add Violent by Design to that multiverse of matches match with the Good Brothers and the Briscoes, and again make it a triple threat tag team match. And maybe the Good Brothers can win the New Japan World Tag Team Championship, the IWGP Tag Team Championships, and maybe they bring all their bouts in, because that would be a true multiverse, right? If you've got someone from Impact, Ring of Honor, and New Japan, even though they're contracted to. Impact Wrestling. Maybe that's what they're going to go to. But I'm a big fan of Eric Young and Joe Doring, so I like their work as a tag team, but again, very shocking, very surprising, that one. And finally, the Knockouts Tag Team Championships also changed hands last night, where the Influence defeated the Inspiration. The Influence wins big. The Influence used the influence of Caleb with a K to capture the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Of course, this match was meant to happen like on 2 separate occasions, but it was the first time it actually was able to happen. Now, ahead of the match, Caleb with a K was told to be banned from ringside, but of course, he made his way to the ring, and it looked like he was actually trying to help the Inspiration. He slid the Knockouts Tag Team Championship bout into the ring, and it went under the legs, I believe, of Cassie Lee, and it helped Madison Rayne clobber her with the Knockouts Tag Team Championship to get the victory, which is surprising because after the match, Caleb with a K looked very confused and was kind of playing up like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Yes, I'm with you guys. So I think that storyline is going to continue to play out. To be honest, even I felt that the Inspiration are a good tag team and to be good tag team champions. I think the title change might be needed in this situation because I think they need more tag teams. I do, and I think they need to light a bit of a fire in the Knockouts tag team division. So whilst I was surprised to see really any titles change hands last night, I think this one might have been the right call. And it makes you wonder, again, the fact that this match was meant to happen twice, this title change was probably meant to happen twice as well. So they've obviously got something big planned for the Knockouts Tag Team Championships and this Influence versus the Inspiration feud. So I think that will continue. Finally, and we mentioned it prior to Sacrifice last night, but Santino Marella made a bit of a cameo, or a couple of cameos at Sacrifice. First of all, he made a cameo in a backstage segment with Heath and Rhino, giving Heath a bit of a pep talk, and he was also on commentary at ringside for the main event. I saw a lot of people saying, he might have been there for his daughter, Bianca Corelli. I believe she signed with WWE. I think she's at the WWE Performance Center, so I don't think that's why he was there. I think it might have been, like I said, maybe he's working as a producer. I'm sure we'll hear more about it going forward, whether he's going to be working as a producer or an agent or on the creative team. We'll have to wait and see. But yes, Santino Marella, or as they were calling him, Anthony Corelli, his real name, was at Sacrifice last night. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to like and subscribe to Wrestle News 365, and I'll speak for you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.